This episode is sponsored by Trade Coffee. I'm in New Orleans, Louisiana right now, the Big Easy, a place where people come from all around the country, all around the world, in order to get down and party. Is that why I'm here? Hell no. I'm here to find fruit. I thought that this would be a good place to find fruit because it is such an overflowing, melting pot of different cultures. You have Cajun culture, African culture, Creole culture. So many people have at some point in time come down here to New Orleans, and because of that you find some interesting produce, including this. This is a Satsuma, and it is probably the most popular fruit in New Orleans, and today we're gonna find out why it's here. When you think of a fruit called mandarin, you probably think of one particular small orange citrus fruit. But there are actually several different types of mandarin, several different species of mandarin as well. And the Satsuma is just one type of mandarin. I'm going to get into that more later in the episode, but I think that it's important to state that although this is just one type of mandarin, in New Orleans, it is so much more than that. Satsumas in New Orleans are a part of life. When they are in season, you'll see them overflowing in bins at the supermarket, you'll see them growing in people's yards, you'll even see them growing just as like landscaping. Satsumas are very much a part of the culture in New Orleans. However, they are not originally from there. They are originally from China. How the mandarin got from China to New Orleans is not a very easy thing to explain for two reasons. First of all, when you look into the history of just like the world, people like to talk more about people killing each other than they do about fruit. So I was able to find some information about the Satsuma buried within stories of people killing each other, and I've kind of like connected the dots to give a more fleshed out reason to why they're there. And the second thing is that in my research I have found two completely different explanations on why the Satsuma is in New Orleans. So some people think it's one thing, other people think it's the other, and I'm not sure which one is right. So I'm going to give you the first history now, and then later in the episode I'm going to give you the other one, and you get to decide which one you think is the real one, or if it's some combination of the two, or neither of them. But yeah, let's get into it. My sponsor today is actually kind of perfect for this channel because it has something to do with fruit. Trade Coffee. Trade is a way to try a wide variety of coffees from local roasters all around the country. And they sent me a very interesting coffee, Gimme Coffee's Angel BBs. This is a coffee that is extra teeny tiny. This is a regular coffee bean. This is an Angel BB coffee bean. I mean, how freaking cute is that? Yes, you're cute too. I kind of feel bad doing this. While I'm getting the coffee ready, let me tell you a little bit about how Trade works. It's really easy. You just fill out a short quiz about how you like your coffee, and then they will match you with coffees that fit your preferences. You pick how often you like your coffee to be delivered, and it will be freshly roasted and shipped to you within 24 hours of ordering. You know, the coffee you get at the supermarket, that sometimes is sitting there for months, maybe even longer than that. If you have it freshly roasted, it makes such a huge difference in flavor. These ones that they sent me smell amazing. After you try the coffee, then you can rate them, and Trade will adjust your preferences, and then, the best part, send you more coffee. Yeah, that's good. It's got a strong, like, stone fruit kind of flavor. If I were to sum this up, it's like coffee but with a chocolate-covered cherry thrown in there. And yeah, Trade, you can use that if you'd like. This is a kind of coffee that I would like, but the main thing that makes this good is that it is freshly roasted. You can really taste it in this. This was only roasted yesterday. So that's amazing. As for the size of the pea berry, does that make a difference? Probably not. But what's interesting about it is how I think this works, why these are so small, is not because it's a special variety, it's because of how coffee is produced. They usually sort it to have a standardized size, and ones that are irregular get sorted out. These ones are those irregular beans. These are too small to meet that standardized size. There's nothing wrong with them, they're totally good, but normally what happens with these is I think they get ground up and then sold as ground coffee. They allowed those coffee beans to go through the full process and be sent to local roasters. That's pretty interesting. Trade guarantees that you will love your first order. If you don't, they will send you a second bag completely free. And my viewers get their first bag free when they sign up with free shipping. So there's no reason not to check it out. Go down to the description box below, click that link, and fill out the coffee quiz today. The fruit that we know as the Satsuma is known as Wenzhou Migan in China. It's named after the area of Wenzhou, where it originates from. From China, this fruit was introduced to Japan through trade. You can see a hint of this exchange today by looking at the Satsuma's binomial name, Citrus Unshiu. Unshiu is actually the Japanese pronunciation of the Chinese characters for Wenzhou. Let me show you what I mean. If we take the Chinese characters from Satsuma and listen to the Chinese, it's this.
Wenzhou Migan.
But if you take the very same characters and you translate those into Japanese, it is this.
Unshiu Mikan.
Well, at least I think that's pretty neat. Okay, so this citrus fruit is now in Japan. Then what happened? Well, do you have a few minutes to talk about Jesus? The Society of Jesus, aka the Jesuits, are a religious order that was established in the early 16th century. They have sent missionaries all around the world in order to convert people to Christianity. This is part of the reason why you see Christianity practiced in many countries, including a lot of countries in Asia. In Japan, however, things didn't go all that smoothly. In the year 1549, Francis Xavier, one of the founders of the Society of Jesus, was the first Jesuit to come to Japan. He originally came ashore in the province of Satsuma, a province that is today part of the Kagoshima prefecture. Xavier died only 3 years after his arrival, but members of his party ended up establishing a port of call in Nagasaki, which allowed trade between Japan and Portugal. Spreading Christianity was the main mission of the Jesuits, but they also needed to make money in order to fund that effort, and they did this through trade. Historically, Japan was highly guarded against outside influence, but through the Jesuits, things started to open up a little bit. Supplies were going in and out of Japan, and fun fact, through this established trade, the Portuguese dish peixinhos da horta was introduced into Japanese cuisine. However, in Japan, they called it something different, tempura. Nagasaki became a Jesuit community and a refuge for Japanese Christians. But not for very long. The shogun, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, was especially concerned about outside influences on Japan. In 1587, he ordered all Christian missionaries to leave Japan. In 1596, he ordered 26 Christians, including 6 missionaries, to be crucified. And then finally, in 1614, Catholicism altogether was officially banned in Japan, leading many Japanese Christians to either renounce their faith, escape to other countries, or to face arrests and execution. So although bringing Christianity to Japan didn't exactly go according to plan, it did introduce the Japanese people to tempura, which is delicious, and it is likely how the Jesuits came to know a small citrus fruit, the mikan, which would later become known in the West as the Satsuma, which was named after the province in Japan. So how did it get to Nola? Well, for that we actually have to go to another country, France. Around the turn of the 17th century, King Louis XIV sent Pierre Lemoine d'Iberville, who was actually an explorer born in Canada. Lemoine d'Iberville... Pierre established the first permanent settlement in French Louisiana and laid the way for several Jesuit priests to come to the area. One of those priests was Father Nicolas Ignace de Beaubois. He established a Jesuit headquarters in New Orleans in the 1720s. Through this, the Jesuits actually did quite a lot in this area. They helped erect a school for girls, they built a plantation, and through their influence in New Orleans around this time, they would have grown crops. So behind me right here is Orange Street in New Orleans, Louisiana. Just, I don't know, maybe like a mile away from the French Quarter. And this is called Orange Street for a really interesting reason. Jesuits came here in the 18th century, and they brought Satsuma citruses with them. And Orange Street is called that because this is where they originally had their groves. They're not here anymore. A long time ago, these groves were moved further south to an area that is now known as Jesuit Bend. And I believe if you go there today, you can still see a bunch of Satsuma trees growing there. I think there still are Satsuma groves there. So what is a Satsuma anyway? Well, on this channel I have spoken a lot how a lot of the citruses that we eat are actually hybrids of other citruses. Pretty much all of them. And this can be very, very complicated stuff. When you really get into it, I don't fully understand it. So first I'm going to give just like a little breakdown, the kindergarten version of what this means. Okay kids, when mommy and daddy fruit trees love each other very, very much, the birds and the bees take the pollen from daddy's flowers and bring it to mommy's flowers. And when this happens, it makes a fruit baby. If daddy is an orange tree and mommy is an orange tree, this baby will be an orange. But let's say mommy and daddy are different types of fruit. Let's say daddy is an orange, but mommy is a pomelo. If those two get together and make a baby, will it create an orange? No. Will it create a pomelo? No. Will it create an alligator? No. It will actually create a grapefruit. Yeah, if you trace back the lineage of just about any citrus, you go way back in time of what the parents are, and the grandparents are, and the great-grandparents are, you get fruit that came from the old country, like your great-great-great-grandparents. Okay? And those are what you call the ancestral species of citruses. These ancestral species include pomelos, citrons, trifoliate oranges, pepitas, kumquats, and mandarins. And satsumas are mandarins. So those are the basics, but if we were to go college level for a minute, it gets real confusing real fast. And I'm not a botanist, so I don't fully understand all of this stuff, but basically satsumas are mandarins, but mandarins are not satsumas. That's because mandarin actually refers to several different species and subspecies of fruit, and the satsuma is just one of several. Tangerines, pumpkins, clementines, Satsumas, these are types of mandarins, but they are different fruits. There are also multiple different classification systems for citruses. So one citrus fruit might be called a certain species under one classification system, but if you look at that fruit under a different classification system, it might actually have a different species name. There are so many different confusing things that I can get into with this fruit, but I don't want to. Except one thing I think is worth going into a little bit is that although I just said, like a minute ago, that citruses that we eat, you can trace them back and get ancestral species, and mandarins are ancestral species. Mandarins are also hybrids. There, I believe, was an OG mandarin, where it was just 100% mandarin, but I don't think it exists anymore. So all mandarins that you eat are actually hybrids. So if you break apart the genetics of this thing and look to see what the parentage is, you will see that it contains the mandarin parentage, like that original fruit that doesn't exist anymore probably. A lot of it is in there. But it also contains usually 22% pomelo, which makes it a little bit closer to being like an orange, because oranges are actually a hybrid between mandarin and pomelo. And so is this. If you look up just the word mandarin, like what species is that, it comes up as Citrus reticulata. The Satsuma has such a high amount of pomelo parentage in it that it kind of separates itself from other mandarins. This is considered to be a different species. Well, depending on what classification system you look into, sometimes people call this Citrus reticulata, but again, I'm not getting into that. Although in the past I've had a lot of fun kind of like picking apart citrus fruits to see what the parentage is, because so many citruses are hybrids, this fruit has humbled me. Okay, so for the second explanation, we actually have to go back to Japan around the same time that we left off with the shogun Hideyoshi. Actually, I think he might not actually be a shogun, but a very high-ranking military official. So let's talk about Japan a little bit here, okay? It's important to note that throughout Japan's history, there have been a lot of conflicts between its emperors and its shoguns. Emperors are the official rulers of Japan. They're the head of the imperial government. But shoguns are something else. They are the head of the military. And throughout Japan's history, they sometimes get along side by side, other times they clash. Well, shortly after Hideyoshi died, Japan entered into the Edo period. Now, this is a very significant period because during this time, the military took control away from the imperial government, and it continued to do so for 250 years. Japan went into an isolationist period, cutting itself off from the rest of the world. And it wasn't until the 1860s that the imperial government started to take back control and Japan started to open up again to the rest of the world. The former shogunate was getting booted out and the new emperor was taking over. So what does this have to do with fruit? We're getting there, hold on. In the United States around this time, President Andrew Johnson appointed a man, Robert Bruce Van Valkenburg, to be the resident minister in Japan. He came to Japan in order to support the new emperor. A civil war had broken out in Japan, and supporters of the former shogunate were now fighting against the new imperial forces. Van Valkenburg helped out by preventing a warship from being delivered to the former military power. But yeah, let's get down to what's really important here. The citrus that would become known as the Satsuma. So during this civil war, northern Japan supported the former shogunate. Southern Japan supported the imperial government. So Van Valkenburg would have been spending a lot of time in the southern area, including the Satsuma region. So he undoubtedly would have been aware of this fruit, but he isn't the real reason why it was brought to New Orleans. His wife is. While in Japan, Van Valkenburg met a recently widowed Irish artist, Anna Scheuer. Anna and her first husband had come to Japan, and they were some pretty interesting characters themselves. They published an English newspaper, the Japan Express, and they introduced Japan to lithography. It's kind of neat, right? Sparks flew, and she and the general got married in Japan. And when Van Valkenburg finally finished with his duties in Japan, the two of them went back to the United States and made a home for themselves in Florida. Back in the United States, Anna really missed that sweet, sweet citrus that she found in Japan. So she had 75 trees brought into Florida from the Satsuma region. The fruit became known by the name of the region that they were exported from, Satsuma. The Van Valkenburgs grew these trees on their estate, and before long, word spread, and so did the trees. Pretty soon, people were growing Satsumas all across the South, including in Louisiana.
Just eat the damn oranges!
So the Satsuma I've been showing you, this one was grown by the Becknell farm, which is the farm that has taken over a lot of the land over where the Jesuit Bend was, where Jesuits were growing Satsumas long ago. So that's this one here. I got this one at a supermarket, and I'm not sure, it might be from the same people, but one thing that is notable about it is the size. Like, these things vary greatly. And that is the case with a lot of mandarins as well. When I looked at the pumpkin, I found a pumpkin that was like as big as my head. But also, the shop that sold those were selling like smaller ones as well. One thing that's interesting about Satsumas is that these things are easy peel. Super, super easy to peel. These are a very convenient fruit because it comes off like nothing. You do not need a peeler to get the rind off of these. And also the fruits separate very easily as well, and they're also mostly seedless. So sometimes you get a seed here and there, but they are mostly seedless. So Satsumas are really convenient in that way. Alright, let's give it a try. They're very sweet. I'd say on a scale of 1 to 10, it's maybe a 5, around the same sweetness as an apple. A little bit sweeter than an orange. However, they're not that sour. So on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10's a lemon, 5 is an orange, this one is like a 3. The flavor of this is not something that I could, easily pick apart, because it tastes like a mandarin. It tastes like any kind of mandarin that's out there. If you've had a mandarin, you kind of know what this tastes like. Only this particular mandarin is different because it is sweeter and less sour. One thing that is notable about this is, like, look at that. These things are really, really juicy. It's like a little balloon filled with Satsuma juice. And when you bite this, you do not feel hardly any pulp. When you eat a Satsuma, it's more like you're drinking this fruit. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the Satsuma. One of the things that I really love about learning about fruit is that fruit can look really simple, it can look really innocent, just like in a bin at the supermarket. But when you take a closer look, there's almost always a really fascinating story behind it. And in the case of the Satsuma, there are 2 stories. So, was it the Jesuits or the Van Valkenburgs? In my opinion, I don't know. There is more information about the Van Valkenburgs. I mean, it happened more recently, but there is Orange Street. And there are Jesuits, and Jesuits did know about the Satsuma. I have no idea. I'm guessing it's a little bit of both. Maybe the Van Valkenburgs didn't know that Satsumas were already there. Maybe they preferred the ones that they had in Japan and there was like a difference in the flavor. Maybe the Jesuits brought something else. I'm not too sure. If you have an idea of what happened from the stories I've told you, let me know in the comments below. Also, if there is any other fruit, whether it's something common that you can get at any market or something a little bit more rare that you want me to do like a real deep dive into the history on, like I did with the Satsuma, let me know that too. And before I go, and I think Vostok as well, would like to give a very, very big thank you to all of the young viewers who were kind enough to contribute art to this episode. All the art that I showed earlier in the section about citrus hybridization, that was all submitted kindly from the young viewers watching. So guys, thank you so much for sending that to me. I'll put some of that artwork up on the screen now so you can see some things that didn't make it to the episode. But guys, thank you so much for sending that to me. And to everybody else, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time with more fruit from New Orleans. Oh, and thanks once again to Trade Coffee for sponsoring this video.